The Emu War, a peculiar and almost surreal chapter in Australian history, unfolded in the early 1930s, pitting man against nature in a most unexpected way. The enemy in this war was the emu, a large, flightless bird native to Australia. The conflict, which occurred in Western Australia, saw the Australian military attempting to curb the impact of these birds on agricultural land. What started as a simple pest control effort quickly escalated into a series of skirmishes that would be remembered for their unexpected outcome. To fully understand the Emu War, it is crucial to explore the background of the situation, the events of the conflict, and its aftermath. The Emu War took place in the context of the Great Depression, a time of severe economic hardship that affected countries worldwide, including Australia. The economic downturn led to high unemployment rates, significant drops in commodity prices, and widespread poverty. In an effort to alleviate some of the economic suffering, the Australian government encouraged veterans from World War I to take up farming. As part of the government's soldier settlement scheme, thousands of ex-servicemen were allocated plots of land in Western Australia, a region with vast expanses of arable land. The idea was to create a new wave of agricultural productivity that could help boost the economy and provide a livelihood for these veterans. The farmers, many of whom were inexperienced, faced numerous challenges. The land they were given was often remote and less fertile than anticipated. On top of the harsh natural conditions, the global collapse in wheat prices made it increasingly difficult for these farmers to make ends meet. In 1932, matters were made worse by the arrival of approximately 20,000 EMUs, which migrated from the inland regions to the coast, where the newly established farms were located. These emus, driven by hunger and instinct, found the wheat fields a convenient source of food and began to ravage the crops. The damage caused by the emus compounded the financial difficulties faced by the farmers, leading to cries for government assistance. The emus' migration to the wheat-growing regions of Western Australia was a natural phenomenon. Each year, these birds migrate from the interior to the coastal regions to breed and find food. In 1932, however, the migration coincided with the peak of the wheat-growing season. The emus, traveling in large flocks, were a formidable sight. They trampled over crops, damaged fences, and consumed vast quantities of wheat for the struggling farmers. This invasion by the emus was the last straw. The situation escalated to the point where the farmers appealed to the government for assistance. They demanded action to protect their crops and their livelihood from the emu onslaught. The farmers initially requested that the government provide them with machine guns to combat the birds. This request was not as outlandish as it might seem, considering that many of the farmers were former soldiers familiar with military weapons. In response to the growing pressure, the government decided to take action. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, approved a military operation to address the emu problem. The task was assigned to a small military contingent armed with Lewis machine guns, a standard-issue weapon from World War I. The operation began in November 1932, with Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery leading the charge. Accompanied by 2 soldiers, Meredith headed to the Campion district, where emu sightings were reported. The soldiers were armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The plan was simple: to drive the emus into a narrow area and mow them down with machine gun fire. However, things did not go according to plan. On November 2nd, the first major engagement took place. The soldiers encountered a flock of around 50 emus. As the emus were sighted, the gunners set up their machine guns and opened fire. The emus, however, proved to be surprisingly resilient and agile. They scattered in all directions, making it difficult for the soldiers to target them effectively. The birds ran at speeds of up to 31 miles per hour, and their erratic movements made them elusive targets. Only a few birds were killed, and the majority of the flock managed to escape. After the initial failure, the military regrouped and modified their tactics. They attempted to ambush larger groups of emus near a dam, expecting the birds to come to drink. This time, they encountered a group of around 1,000 emus. The soldiers set up their machine guns and waited. As the emus approached, they opened fire. However, the Lewis guns jammed after only a few rounds, and the emus scattered once again. This pattern of hit and miss continued over the next few days. The soldiers even attempted to mount one of the machine guns on a truck to chase down the emus. Unfortunately, the rough terrain and the emu's speed made it impossible to get close enough for effective shooting. One of the most surprising aspects of the Emu War was the intelligence and adaptability displayed by the emus. The birds quickly learned to stay out of range of the machine guns. They began to move in smaller groups, making it harder for the soldiers to target them effectively. Major Meredith himself noted the birds' tactics, stating that each mob seems to have its own leader now, a big black-plumed bird which stands fully 6 feet high and keeps watch while his fellows busy themselves with the wheat. The emu's ability to evade capture and their apparent coordination baffled the soldiers. After nearly a month of engagements, the military effort was called off. By the time the operation ended, approximately 1,000 emus had been killed, a small fraction of the total population. The emus had proven to be a far more challenging opponent than anyone had anticipated. The operation was deemed a failure, and the troops were withdrawn. The farmers continued to face problems with the emus, but the military intervention was not renewed. Instead, the government encouraged the use of bounties on emus, which allowed farmers and hunters to deal with the problem more effectively on a smaller scale. The Emu War quickly became a subject of ridicule, both in Australia and internationally. The idea of a modern military force being outwitted by a flock of birds was seen as farcical. Newspapers ran headlines mocking the government's efforts, and cartoons depicting the emus as victorious soldiers were published. The Emu War was seen as a comical episode, highlighting the absurdity of using military force against wildlife. However, for the farmers who continued to struggle, the situation was far from humorous. The emus remained a significant problem for many years, and the issue of pest control in Australia persisted. Following the Emu War, the government and farmers turned to more conventional methods of pest control. Fencing was improved to protect crops, and the bounty system encouraged more widespread culling of emus. In the following decades, technological advances in farming and pest management provided more effective solutions. The establishment of the State Barrier Fence of Western Australia, also known as the rabbit-proof fence, helped to control the movement of emus and other pests, reducing their impact on agriculture. The Emu War has since become a part of Australian folklore, often cited as an example of the unpredictability of nature and the folly of human attempts to control it. The event has inspired various works of literature, films, and even video games, reflecting its enduring place in the public imagination. The Emu War is a reminder of the unique challenges faced by those who live and work in Australia's rural landscapes. The Great Emu War of 1932 stands as a unique episode in history, illustrating the complex relationship between humans and nature. What began as a straightforward attempt to protect crops turned into a bizarre conflict that captured the public's imagination. The emus, with their resilience and cunning, managed to outmaneuver a modern military force. The Emu War may be remembered for its comedic elements. It also underscores the serious challenges faced by farmers and the need for sustainable solutions to human-wildlife conflicts. Thank you for watching this video. Hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos.